They are perched on park benches, scurrying down streets. They're even taking the subway. We're talking about the many, many rats living across the Big Apple.
Back in 2003, 60 New York firefighters abandoned their own station.
After dark, folks didn't even want to be out here. They didn't think it was safe, but at least they were safe at home.
Not because of flames or gas leaks, but because rats took over. Exterminators visited 26 times in 5 months. Nothing worked. 20 years later, 3 million rats control the city, spreading disease that killed 6 people in 1 year.
Rat was like this big, like this big. And then this is not even the biggest because the tail, you gotta remember the tail is longer than the rat.
So the mayor did something that would have sounded like a joke 5 years ago. She hired someone to release millions of rat killers across New York. Do you think it worked? Let's find out. The city that belongs to rats. In 2014, Animal Planet did not just call New York a rat city, they crowned it the worst rat city on the entire planet, and they had the science to prove it. New York's population density, aging infrastructure with gaps and crawl spaces, and 12,000 tons of daily garbage create a perfect rat habitat. A rat needs just 1 ounce of food and 1 ounce of water daily, easily found in curbside trash and subway puddles. People step off sidewalks at night to let clusters of rats pass. Mechanics keep photos of chewed wiring that caused unexpected car fires. Most New Yorkers know this is not a hidden problem. Tenants hear movement inside the walls, sometimes loud enough to wake them from sleep. Even the official studies confirm what residents see themselves. Jonathan Auerbach's 2014 analysis used 311 reports to estimate nearly 2 million rats living in the city. A separate 2023 study recorded roughly 3 million rats, a 50% increase in less than 1 decade. The health risks rise alongside the population. Rats carry pathogens that trigger diarrhea, vomiting, and fever, and the fleas, lice, and ticks living on them spread illnesses such as typhus, spotted fever, and even bubonic plague. It is a citywide system of exposure, operating in subways, parks, apartments, vehicles, and alleyways without any consistent boundaries. And just when you think it cannot get worse than 3 million plague-carrying rodents, there is the disease they are spreading that is breaking records. The rat urine disease. 24. New Yorkers contracted leptospirosis in 2023 from rat urine, the highest number ever recorded in 1 year, and by early 2024, 6 additional cases had already surfaced. The surge was unprecedented. Those 24 infections surpassed every previous annual count, especially when the long-term average between 2001 and 2020 was only 3 cases each year. 6 deaths have been documented between 2001 and 2023, and most infections occurred in middle-aged men, with the Bronx consistently reporting the highest concentration of cases. Leptospirosis itself begins like a mild illness, but escalates into dangerous territory. Victims develop fever, vomiting, and severe muscle pain before the disease advances toward kidney failure and liver damage. Infection happens through contact with contaminated trash, walking through puddles or alleyways where rats have urinated, or working in environments where sanitation breaks down. Every encounter becomes a point of exposure in a city where millions of rats move unseen through tunnels, basements, and garbage sites. The economic impact mirrors the biological threat. Rats cause an estimated $27 billion in damage each year by destroying food, structures, wiring, and machinery. The consequences stretch far outside New York, including the 2019 interstate power outage along I-30 in Arkansas, which investigators traced back to a rat chewing through electrical equipment and triggering a system collapse. The fight against rats has always carried a sense of futility, something perfectly captured in a 1944 conversation between an exterminator and the subway reporter Joseph Mitchell. When asked what to do about a home that had been overrun, the exterminator replied, "If you get a few rats in your house, there are just 2 things you can do. You can wait for them to die, or you can burn your house down and start all over again." So what do you do when poison and traps do not work, and burning down the city is not an option? You start thinking about bringing in something else to do the killing for you. When poison and traps kept failing, New York made a decision no other American city had attempted, hiring someone whose sole job was to defeat rats. Why every other solution failed. Before New York hired its first rat czar, every other city tried something that seemed obvious: release predators that kill rats. The most famous happened in March 1960 when the Royal Air Force flew over Borneo and dropped roughly 20 cats from planes, each in a basket with a parachute. Between 1952 and 1955, the island was sprayed with insecticide to fight malaria mosquitoes. The chemical worked, but killed most cats. Without cats, Rats exploded, threatening rice fields and raising plague fears. Parachute cats restored balance. Local communities sent messages. Thanks for the cats. No more rat problems. That success wasn't repeated. On Pakistan's Astola Island, cats released to control rats ignored rodents entirely and devastated seabird colonies instead. Australia turned the cat problem into an ecological crisis. Cats never lived there until European settlers brought them in the 18th century. They adapted, spread, and formed feral populations. Today, between 2.1 and 6.3 million feral cats roam Australia, killing 5 million native animals daily. They caused 27 extinctions and cost roughly $6 billion annually. Australia classifies feral cats as the main reason the continent is the world's capital of mammal extinction. Cats also spread toxoplasmosis, costing agriculture and healthcare over $6 billion yearly. Mongooses followed the same pattern. When Jamaican plantation owners released 9 mongooses from India in 1872, rats disappeared within 6 months. Plantation records called it clear proof that rats became far less destructive. Success led to releases across the Caribbean and Pacific, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and dozens of islands. By 1888, the illusion collapsed. Rats surged after shifting to nocturnal behavior, avoiding daytime hunting. With rats harder to catch, mongooses switched to local wildlife with no defenses. In Fiji, mongooses wiped out the bar-winged rail and devastated Pacific black duck, buff-banded rail, western swampan, and shy ground dove populations. By 1999, annual damage in Hawaii and Puerto Rico alone reached $50 million. The International Union for Conservation of Nature designated the small Indian mongoose as one of the 100 most dangerous invasive species, implicated in 8 endangered Hawaiian bird species collapses, including the Hawaiian crow. The pattern repeated: temporary rat reduction, behavioral adaptation, predators abandoning rats for easier meals, and long-term ecological destruction that never recovered. But after a century of disastrous experiments, scientists in New York realized they had to confront an uncomfortable question. What if the predators everyone trusted to kill rats were never effective to begin with? The Brooklyn study that ended the cat debate. New York had 500,000 stray cats already. Before spending millions on technology, scientists needed to answer one question: were the cats doing anything? Dr. Michael Parsons from Fordham University designed a study at a Brooklyn recycling center where both rats and cats lived in the same space. Over 79 days, his team recorded 306 videos of cats interacting with rats. They documented 20 stalking events and 3 kill attempts. The cats successfully killed 2 rats. That's it. 2 kills in almost 3 months of constant observation. The footage revealed something even more interesting than the low kill count. Researchers noticed a behavior they called the stop-and-go dance. When a rat paused during a chase, the cat paused as well, as if it wasn't sure whether to keep attacking. The hesitation happened repeatedly, and it showed that the cats weren't just bad at hunting rats. They were actively intimidated by them. The reason came down to size. A typical New York brown rat weighs about 11.6 ounces, or roughly 330 grams. That's more than 10 times heavier than the 15-gram birds or 30-gram mice that house cats usually hunt. Studies from New Zealand did show cats eating rats, but those rats weighed only about 5 ounces, less than half the size of New York rats. The weight difference completely changes the predatory dynamic. Cats don't see New York rats as prey, they see them as threats. New York's rat population is dominated by the brown rat, and by 2014, they'd already pushed out the smaller black rats that used to share the territory. Brown rats are bigger, more aggressive, and better at fighting off predators. They also adapted to avoid cats. Rats are smart enough to recognize danger and adjust their behavior, hiding in places where cats can't reach them, or moving only when cats aren't around. The recycling plant study confirmed what pest control experts had suspected for years. Cats are useless at controlling city rat populations. The only program where cats actually helped came from Washington, D.C.'s Blue Collar Cats initiative. The program trapped feral cats, neutered them, vaccinated them, and released them back onto the streets. Property owners who participated agreed to provide food and shelter, and in return, the cats were expected to keep rats away. But even this program doesn't claim that cats hunt rats. The program's own website explains that rats are intelligent, and word spreads quickly when an area no longer feels safe. The cats don't need to kill anything. Their presence alone creates enough pressure to push rats elsewhere. It only works at a small scale with sterilized cats and willing property owners, and it's not population control, it's displacement. Dr. Parsons summarized the entire issue in one sentence. Predation by cats or any other animal won't reduce rat populations, and any biologist studying the problem will tell you the same thing. There are only two ways to control rats: release predators to kill them or cut off their food supply. Every predator experiment failed. So in April 2023, New York tried something different. The Rat Czar takes command. On April 12, 2023, Mayor Eric Adams announced that New York City now had a director of rodent mitigation. The 900 people who applied had to prove they were, in Adams' exact words, bloodthirsty. Kathleen Karate got the job. Her resume made her the only qualified candidate. She had built the Zero Waste Schools program, reaching 350,000 students. She led rodent reduction efforts, achieving 70% compliance across 120 schools. The city gave her a $3.5 million budget. Karate didn't order more poison or traps. She saw that the city's biggest weakness wasn't a lack of pest control. It was that every agency worked separately. Health inspected buildings, sanitation picked up trash, parks maintained green spaces, and housing tracked violations. Nobody coordinated data or treated the infestation as one connected crisis needing one unified response. A landlord could receive health department violations while sanitation continued to collect their overflowing trash. Neither agency communicated with the other. The Office of Rodent Mitigation changed that. For the first time, all agencies reported to one command tracking every complaint, inspection, cleanup, and outbreak across 5 boroughs in real time. Karate launched Get Stuff Clean and targeted over 1,000 rat mitigation zones where complaints showed chronic infestations. Crews removed 1,500 tons of debris in 6 months, doubled pickups, and combined street cleaning with building enforcement. Within 6 months, citywide sightings dropped 45%. Grand Concourse fell by 60%. But the program that made the biggest difference wasn't cleanup, it was timing. The 8 p.m. rule that changed everything. New York had always allowed residents and businesses to put their trash out as early as 4 p.m. That meant garbage sat on sidewalks for up to 8 hours overnight, giving rats an all-you-can-eat buffet that lasted from sundown until dawn. Karate's team pushed through a regulation that sounded almost too simple to matter. Trash in bags couldn't go out until 8 p.m. Trash in sealed containers could go out at 6 p.m. The change cut the overnight feeding window by 70%. Restaurant owners protested, arguing they closed at midnight and couldn't store bags inside overnight. Pilot neighborhoods like Hell's Kitchen and Fordham tested it first. Within 3 months, pilot neighborhoods showed measurable complaint reductions. The data was so clear that the city expanded the policy everywhere. But Karate went further. She pushed the trash containerization program. Starting July 2023, residential buildings with up to 9 units had to use rigid, lidded, rat-resistant bins instead of piling bags on curbs. Larger buildings followed in early 2024. Sanitation Commissioner Jessica Tisch called it the single most important modernization of New York's waste system in a century. Neighborhoods adopting containerization saw complaints fall by more than half. Violations brought fines between $300 and $2,000. The Department of Health conducted over 150,000 inspections in 2023, up by 20%. The city also launched Rat Academy, a free workshop training landlords and residents to rat-proof buildings. Over 5,000 people completed the program, becoming certified monitors coordinating with agencies. Karate's approach was working because it attacked the root cause. Rats didn't need to be killed faster, they needed to lose access to food. But while the city was rolling out these infrastructure changes, Karate was also deploying something nobody expected. The technology nobody saw coming. Karate didn't release cats or mongooses. She released millions of dollars worth of technology functioning as rat killers without ecological disasters. The city designated rat mitigation zones in East Harlem, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Grand Concourse, and Lower Manhattan. These became testing grounds for every non-toxic, high-tech method available. Carbon monoxide burrow systems pumped gas into underground dens, suffocating colonies without harming pets or people. Dry ice sealing used CO2 to fill tunnels and eliminate nesting sites. Both methods worked faster than poison with fewer environmental risks. Smart traps followed. Ecomilla stations used food attractants instead of chemicals. Once a rat entered, the device automatically euthanized it in a non-toxic liquid and recorded each capture digitally. Stations connected to a live dashboard so technicians could monitor trap activity citywide in real time. Field data showed Ecomilla units cut manual servicing by 30% while maintaining higher capture rates. The city saw exactly where rats were caught, how many, and when. The most fascinating technology was Contrapest, a rat contraceptive deployed in containerized waste areas. The formula contains salty, fatty pellets that rats find irresistible. Once eaten, the formula disrupts ovarian function in females and sperm production in males. It doesn't kill immediately, it stops reproduction. Over time, populations shrink naturally without poison spreading through food chains. The city upgraded the rat information portal, which has existed since 2010 but is outdated. The redesign provided block-level data integrating complaints with sanitation records, housing violations, and health inspections. Residents looked up whether blocks had violations or cleanup work. Agencies used data to prioritize interventions. AI cameras monitored high-density areas and fed real-time footage, creating a complete digital map that was constantly updated. The FY 2023 budget allocated $3.5 million for rat mitigation plus staffing. The City Council passed laws requiring agencies to share infestation data through standardized systems, ending decades of siloed reporting. 20 full-time specialists were hired, equipped with portable sensors and AI-linked tools. But one question remained: will this technology work? The numbers that proved it worked. By the end of 2023, the data came in. Complaints in RMZs fell by 55% in the first year. East Harlem dropped from 3,200 complaints to 1,400. The Grand Concourse went from 2,800 to 1,300. For the first time since 2018, New York recorded a citywide decline in rat sightings, a modest but meaningful 14% drop. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was the first time the city had pushed the rat population backward instead of watching it grow. Compliance with the new waste rules rose by over 40% in the same neighborhoods. Property owners were sealing their buildings, residents were reporting violations, and the multi-agency coordination was catching problems faster than ever before. Experts outside New York took notice. Jason Munchie South from Fordham University called it the first time New York treated rat control as urban engineering instead of extermination. Kaylee Byers from the University of British Columbia's Urban Rat Project said the city had shifted the paradigm from poison to prevention. In May 2024, New York hosted the first-ever National Urban Rat Summit, bringing rodent control experts from across the country to study what the city was doing. The approach was working not because it killed more rats, but because it removed the conditions that let rats thrive in the first place. But not everyone was convinced. The issue isn't about understanding rat behavior, it's about understanding waste management, green space design, transit infrastructure, and housing policy. Karate's strength wasn't that she knew how to trap rats. It was that she knew how to coordinate systems and enforce accountability across bureaucracies that had never worked together before. The numbers proved New York's approach worked. The success was undeniable, yet every expert warned the same thing. The real test was never the first year of progress. It was what the rats would do next. What happens next? By late 2024, New York had proven that the engineering approach worked, but nobody was calling it a victory. The 14% citywide decline in rat sightings was progress, not resolution. 3 million rats still lived in the city, and they were adapting. Climate change was creating warmer winters that let rats survive and reproduce year-round. The city's 12,000 tons of daily garbage still presented a constant opportunity, especially in neighborhoods that lacked storage space for sealed bins. Some critics pointed out that Kathleen Karate wasn't a rodentologist and questioned whether someone without a background in pest biology could really solve the problem. The response from researchers was blunt. Holistic urban planning matters more than killing rats. Still, even with the progress, challenges remained. Rats were also adapting. A 2025 climate study revealed that New York had the fourth highest rat population spike among 16 global cities, meaning the problem was accelerating even as the city fought back. And then, in December 2024, something almost poetic happened. Mayor Eric Adams, who'd made rat control a signature issue and hired the city's first Rat Czar, received rat citations at his own Brooklyn home. Rats had already shown they could shift to nocturnal behavior to avoid mongooses in the 1800s, and there was no reason to think they couldn't adapt to cameras, contraceptives, or timed trash schedules if given enough generations. What worked in East Harlem might not work in Flushing. What reduced complaints in the Grand Concourse might not translate to the financial district. Every neighborhood had different housing stock, different waste patterns, different infrastructure, and different levels of community participation. The Rat Information Portal tracked all of it, but tracking doesn't solve problems. It just makes them visible. The real work was convincing property owners to seal their buildings, convincing residents to follow new trash rules, and convincing agencies to keep sharing data even when it revealed their own failures. Critics continue to question whether someone without a pest biology background could sustain long-term success, but researchers kept pushing back with the same answer. This was never about understanding rat behavior. It was about understanding systems. Kaylee Byers summed it up. We've been doing catch, kill, repeat for thousands of years, and it's not working. The shift from extermination to prevention, from poison to engineering, from isolated agency efforts to coordinated infrastructure management represented the first time any city had treated rats as an ecological problem instead of a pest problem. The truth is that releasing millions of rat killers, whether they're cats, mongooses, or high-tech contraceptives and smart traps, was never going to be the silver bullet some people imagined. Every solution comes with its own risks, its own costs, and its own unintended consequences. New York chose the hardest path, the one that required changing human behavior, rebuilding infrastructure, and accepting that the fight may never really end. The question isn't whether the rats can be eliminated, it's whether New York can build a city where they no longer have the advantage. So here's the real question for you. Will rats adapt to contraceptives and timed trash schedules the same way they went nocturnal to avoid mongooses? Or is this finally the approach that works? Drop your answer in the comments section below, and if you want more stories about hidden battles being fought in cities around the world, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.